Welcome to this explainer. Let's get right into it today because we are unpacking one of the most debated, mysterious, and honestly heartbreaking masterpieces in all of Western art. We're looking closely at the hidden meanings behind the Arnolfini Portrait. Painted way back in 1434 by the Flemish master Jan van Eyck, this isn't just some standard portrait of a couple standing in a room. It is a masterpiece where literally nothing, and I mean nothing, is accidental. It's been hiding a deeply emotional secret in plain sight for almost 6 centuries. So let's dive into this. Okay, first things first, we have to immediately address the elephant in the room. When you look at the woman in that incredibly striking green dress, what is the literal first thing you assume? You assume she's pregnant, right? Don't worry, it is exactly what almost everyone thinks when they first set eyes on her. But here's the really fascinating part. That assumption is actually the key to unlocking everything this painting is hiding. Because, well, the answer is no. She is absolutely not pregnant. And once you sort of let go of that assumption, this stops being a portrait of a happy, growing family and becomes something much darker. You see, what we're actually looking at here is just a very specific 15th century fashion trend. Among wealthy women of the time, it was a massive flex to gather the front of a heavy gown and hold it forward, creating this exact silhouette. Van Eyck even painted the Virgin Mary in this exact same pose in another work, and he clearly wasn't intending to suggest she was currently pregnant there. Plus, when you realize the man in the painting, Giovanni Arnolfini, was a highly successful cloth merchant, this huge, extravagant display of gathered, expensive fabric on his wife becomes the ultimate, incredibly clever advertisement for his business. Section 1. The Great Misconception. To really wrap our heads around what we're looking at, we need to ground ourselves in the setting. The year is 1434. The location is the insanely wealthy city of Bruges in modern-day Belgium, and our artist is Jan van Eyck. Every single item in this elegant room is a deliberate, screaming statement of extreme wealth. Just to quantify that for a second, consider the number 2,000. Scholars estimate that it may have taken up to 2,000 individual squirrel pelts just to line the inside of that stunning green gown. This wasn't just clothing, it was literally a wearable fortune. And this brilliantly illustrates the lengths they went to project status. I mean, the flexing definitely goes far beyond the squirrel pelts. The man is wearing this velvet tabard trimmed with marten fur, another massive luxury reserved strictly for the super rich. Then look over on the windowsill and the chest. Imported oranges. In 15th century Bruges, these were incredibly expensive. They aren't sitting there to be a snack. They are there simply to be seen. And down at their feet, a small, highly bred luxury dog. Van Eyck painted this entire room with a level of precision that frankly shouldn't have even been possible in 1434. Not a single shadow or object is an accident. This merchant wanted everyone who looked at this piece to know, without a doubt, exactly how successful he was. Section 2. A Document in Paint. Now, Van Eyck didn't just casually paint a wealthy couple. He fundamentally changed painting forever. He basically helped transform oil painting into the dominant medium of Northern Europe by perfecting this technique of layering translucent glazes. It created a depth and a luminosity nobody had ever achieved before. Just look at how the light catches the fur totally differently than the velvet. But more than that, Van Eyck understood that a painting could be a legal document, a permanent record of fact. Notice that really elaborate Gothic inscription integrated right into the exact center of the back wall. It reads, Johannes de Eyck voet Hic, 1434, which translates to Jan van Eyck was here, 1434. Pay close attention to the phrasing there. Not painted by, but was here. He is planting his flag as a literal physical witness to the scene unfolding before him. And this precise wording led to a massive breakthrough in art history. Back in 1934, art historian Erwin Panofsky proposed a theory that completely revolutionized how the world viewed this artwork. Panofsky argued the painting was actually a legal document recording a marriage ceremony. The couple was identified as Giovanni di Arrigo Arnolfini and his wife. Under this theory, Van Eyck's prominent signature serves as an official witness to their vow. Furthermore, if you look really closely at that convex mirror on the back wall, it reflects the entire room, including two tiny figures standing at the doorway, one in blue, one in red. Panofsky believed one of them was Van Eyck himself, acting as an additional witness and permanently embedding himself into the legal record of this wedding. It's a fantastic, perfectly packaged theory. Section 3. The Broken Timeline. But because history absolutely loves a good plot twist, later research came along and completely dismantled Panofsky's famous, widely accepted theory. Let's look at the actual historical record for a second. Panofsky identified the man as Giovanni di Arrigo Arnolfini. However, records eventually proved that Giovanni di Arrigo didn't actually get married until 1447. That is a full 6 years after our painter Jan van Eyck had already died. So the math simply doesn't add up. So who are these people? Well, the most convincing evidence points to a cousin, Giovanni di Niccolao Arnolfini, and his wife Costanza Trenta. And if that identification is correct, the date on this painting, 1434, turns this artwork into one of the most heartbreaking details in art history. Because as our timeline shows, Costanza Trenta died in 1433, a full year before this painting was ever made. Section 4. Clues of a Tragedy. In 2003, art historian Margaret Koster took this broken timeline and proposed a groundbreaking theory that flips the script entirely. The old 1934 theory told us this was a happy legal document recording a marriage. But Koster's 2003 theory argues that this isn't a wedding portrait at all. Instead, it is a posthumous memorial. It's a painting commissioned by a grieving husband to honor a wife who was already dead before the very first drop of paint ever hit the canvas. It is just fascinating how shifting our perspective takes the exact same visual evidence and turns it into a much darker, incredibly emotional narrative. To fully grasp this new theory, we need to understand a really crucial term, memento mori. It is an artistic or symbolic reminder of the inevitability of death. Once you know that this painting is highly likely a memento mori, you start seeing this macabre funerary symbolism that Van Eyck hid in plain sight literally everywhere in the room. So the really crucial point here is how Van Eyck literally split the painting right down the middle, separating the living from the dead. Look up at the chandelier above them. Above the man on the left side, there is a single, brightly burning candle. But look over at the woman on the right side. The candle has gone out. An extinguished candle is a classic memento mori symbol for a life that has ended. Now, consider that convex mirror we talked about earlier. It's framed by 10 tiny medallions showing scenes from the Passion of Christ, and they aren't random. On the left side, near the living husband, the medallions show scenes of Christ alive. On the right side, next to the deceased wife, the medallions only show scenes of Christ's death and crucifixion. Let's revisit some of those other details we initially thought were just about wealth and status. Look closely at the carved figure on the post of the chair behind the woman. It's barely visible in the shadows, but it depicts a woman standing on a dragon. That is Saint Margaret, the patron saint of childbirth. Given that Costanza died in 1433, historians strongly suspect she died in childbirth, making this inclusion just deeply tragic. And remember the little dog? While Panofsky saw it as a symbol of marital fidelity, in medieval funerary tradition, dogs frequently appear at the feet of female effigies on tombs. They act as guardians meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. So suddenly the extinguished candle, the patron saint of childbirth, and the guardian dog paint a devastating picture. Section 5. The Ultimate Witness. When you put all of these layered symbols together, the emotional depth beneath the surface of this portrait is just staggering. It totally transforms from a stiff, static display of wealth into an agonizing tribute to a lost love. It is truly a marvel that for 600 years, this story has been hiding right in plain sight. We really have to be in awe of Van Eyck's incredible precision and deliberate care here. He didn't just paint a picture, he buried a profound hidden meaning in every single corner, shadow, and reflection. He signed the wall not just to show off his skill, because he saw something deeply human worth recording. He was a witness to this space, and almost 6 centuries later, because of his total genius, we get to stand in that room and act as witnesses right alongside him. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. If a masterpiece as famous as this one managed to hide a tragic memorial in plain sight for hundreds of years, it begs the question, what other stories are hiding right in front of us, just waiting for us to look a little closer? Art and history are rarely what they seem at first glance. Keep questioning, keep looking deeply, and I guarantee you'll find stories that will absolutely amaze you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.